Hong Kong Phooey, #1 super guy. Hong Kong Phooey, terrific!
Hey, if you like this video, you should share it. So recently I demanded proof that Kung Fu techniques could actually hold their own and be effective in a no-holds-barred fight, ideally at the upper echelon of combative fighting, like a mixed martial arts match or the UFC or something like that. Just not something like this.
The effect is similar to that of continually slamming a battering ram against a door.
I see. As proof, a lot of people sent me footage of idiots fighting idiots, which I guess proves that some forms of stupidity are superior to others. I don't know. I don't know what we were proving. Now, I also received a bunch of footage of eye gouges, and there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that eye gouges are an incredibly damaging and potentially devastating attack. No doubt at all. I did, however, call into speculation whether or not it's even safe to be projecting your open fingers at somebody's face, and I would submit that it is not. But we'll talk about it. And we'll also talk about potentially setting up eye gouges in what I think would be the most effective way possible. And more importantly, we'll tie everything together and bring us all to the same page where we can all agree and be a happy, fight-smart family again. Now let me start out by saying that in any fight between an unskilled and another unskilled opponent, there's going to be a certain percentage chance that anything works, okay? Regardless of how dumb it might be, it might work. So if somebody pulls something like this right here, we'll say maybe there's a 50% chance that the guy gets to bang on the other guy's forehead a couple of times and the technique works. And, you know, there's a 50% chance that the guy just happened to be aiming at his chin and blasts him in the head. And then obviously the technique doesn't work. Now, I don't know about you, but 50-50, that's not my type of odds. And if we look at this technique for what it is an entry with the guy's chin sky high. His chin is moving on a straight line. There is no angle on this attack. He's not moving his head while he's attacking. And at no point could his hands possibly defend anything that might come at his head. So look, while this might work 50% of the time against an idiot, against a skilled opponent, this is a terrible idea 100% of the time. Even if it works, it was still a bad idea. So when you're trying to assess what works and what doesn't work, it's not a black and white issue. There's a gray area because look, no matter what, if you bang your fist on somebody's head, yeah, that theoretically works. But you have to ask yourself, what are the odds? What are the odds that this will be a success versus a failure that costs me? And also, what is the potential payout? Am I going to make a figure eight with my fist just because I can make contact with somebody's head and that could theoretically knock them out? No, absolutely not. So this is why it's important to look at the highest levels of competition, because as techniques start to get riskier and riskier without the same amount of payoff, you'll start to see them less and less. The ones that are effective and that can be worth the risk will still be there, and the ones that are not effective or are just too high risk, they disappear. You do not see them at all. This is why we'll still see spinning wheel kicks, but unfortunately we will never see chain punching in the UFC, regardless of how awesome you can make it look. Now, speaking of the stuff that actually works, let's talk about eye gouges, because there is no doubt that they can be debilitating, and they can certainly do a ton of damage. In fact, my buddy Derek happened to get into a fight with a bunch of guys in Red Bank, New Jersey, and he got fish hooked in the eye and ruined his vision. Albeit they beat the shit out of those kids, but it definitely ruined his vision. He had to drop out of the Marine Corps, and it was a huge problem. So, look, there's no doubt that it hurts. Now, that said, when you see a guy get poked in the eye in a mixed martial arts match, and he goes down and he hits the ground, he's rolling around, that's not necessarily how somebody is going to react if there are actual stakes. Look, that's a violation of the rules in a mixed martial arts match, and there's a referee to stop things while the guy recovers. And he usually gets up, he rubs his eye for a while, and once his eye like instinctually opens back up, he can then fight. And sometimes it's really disgusting and he can't. But I'll tell you right now, if it's you and me in an alley and my wife and kid are behind me, just because you poke my eye, you could tear my eye into my skull, I'm still gonna battle you till the death to protect my family. So it's not the end all be all. And you also have to keep in mind that just because it's a good idea to make your finger make contact with an eyeball, it's not a given. This is a small thing headed into a small target. It still has to be set up. There's an action, a skillful action that has to take place to make that happen with any degree of reliability. And again, one poke is certainly not going to do the job as a guarantee. It will, however, give you a very nice advantage. Now, with one eye closed, the guy actually has no depth perception. You have to have both eyes to triangulate distances, and therefore it will be very difficult for him to actually make contact with your head because he has no depth perception. That's always going to be a tremendous advantage. If nothing else, you will create for yourself a temporary advantage by virtue of that guy's lack of vision. You can easily attack that side without him being able to defend it due to an increased blind spot or a decrease in his peripheral vision, and again, the lack of depth perception. So what you're saying, Trav, is that Kung Fu works really well, right? Now let's take a look at this one clip that I received, which is theoretically a Kung Fu guy instructing the Peruvian Special Forces. And one guy supposedly calls out the instructor, and you know, they say, okay, well, we're allowed to do anything. Anything goes. Let's fight. All right? And here's what happens. After sizing each other up with a quick reach and stab, it's all over pretty quickly. Then the Green Beret strolls off like King Ding-a-ling, and this guy's friends point and laugh at him. Then, of course, they realize he's pretty badly hurt, and eventually will collapse to the ground while these guys weirdly hold hands. Now let's take a closer look at what actually happened here, starting with our Peruvian Special Forces guy in Caprice. What we have here is another entry without head movement, head moving straight in on a line, both hands out so that neither is able to protect the guy's face. And as we learned earlier, this is stupid, stupid, stupid 100% of the time. And it's another reason why if anybody ever says that they're special forces, you can continue berating them. I'm just kidding. Especially if they have weapons. Now let's go back and look at what our eye-gouging Kung Fu master does. What we have here is another entry without head movement, head moving straight ahead. One hand happens to make its way to the other guy's eye. The left hand reaches out to God knows what. Neither of them able to protect his head. Additionally, his chin is straight up, not even bothering to hide behind his shoulder. And it looks like if he didn't make impact with this guy, he would have fallen over. Again, this is still a stupid, stupid idea 100% of the time. But looking at what we assessed earlier, sometimes when you're combining probability and stupidity, or stupability, you end up with success. This is still idiotic. This does not tell me that Wing Chun is an effective style. It merely contains effective elements. Look, if your goal is truly to set up eye gouges, my recommendation would be to study the art that focuses the most on making fist and or hand contact with people's heads. If you want to claw at people's eyes, study boxing. These guys are masters at setting up hand-to-head impact. Just do it in such a way that claws at people's eyes. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of people sent me Deontay Wilder's hand tap knockout as evidence that Jeet Kune Do works, because Jeet Kune Do also revolves around occasionally trapping people's hands and then throwing strikes over the top. But you cannot separate the actual knockout blow. You can't separate the winning technique from the techniques that set it up. What set up that awesome hand tap knockout? Was it a bunch of jabs and some feints and, you know, finally the guy realizes that he can knock that hand down and hit him with an overhand right? Or was it the chi sao? Okay, you can't sit there and take similarities between two things and say that they are in fact the same thing, because they are not the same thing. Now, would I personally ever throw my hand out open like this in order to rake at somebody's eyes or eye gouge them? And no, I wouldn't. Okay, even in I think in a life or death scenario, I'd probably be going for the knockout more so than the eye gouge. I mean, obviously, if the guy has like a single leg on me and his hands are trapped, and I could just, you know, stuff a thumb in his eye or rake his face unencumbered, that's a different story. But for the most part, I don't project my open hand at somebody's head. I've jammed this thumb backwards before, and it's a terrible injury. And all that guy has to do is go like this for there to be a likelihood of that happening. One of these phalanges is going to get bent backwards. And if you jack the thumb back far enough, it ends up being a nasty tear, what's actually called skier's thumb. It requires surgery to be repaired in a lot of cases, and now you've just damaged the joint that's most responsible for human evolution. So if we're going to stab at eyes, we better damn well do so intelligently. Okay, so perhaps a hand tap Set up a jab, okay? Throw a couple of jabs out there and then jab into a hand tap. Fake the jab into a hand tap and throw this. Or perhaps kick the guy in the stomach a few times. Man, blast him, then show him the kick and do a Superman claw into the guy's eye, okay? We know that works. We know a Superman punch works. You can do it from far away as an entry with head movement, no less. So we can make that claw nice and safe and base it in reality, and it'll make a lot of sense. Let's use boxing and kickboxing to set up the grimy stuff, and all in all, I think at the end of the day, we'll be better off than the mysticism of the Chi Sao and the stupidity of a circle punch.
As much as I love Ip Man, we just can't do it.
Now, to bring us all back together and to bring us into a state of unanimous agreement, one thing I think we all should have seen by watching these clips is that the guy who trains his style the most or uses his style the most and therefore develops the most real-world confidence is the guy who's going to have the most effective style. Obviously, you know, I'm never going to acquiesce that kickboxing is inferior to Wing Chun, but that's a dude who must have obviously had some experience in actually sparring with Wing Chun, and as such, he was confident enough to catch the other dude's kicks and dump him on his ass a whole bunch of times, all right? Using your art is actually more important than the art itself, all right? So no matter what you choose to study, it is your responsibility to make it work in a real world setting and actually determine what's real and what isn't real. And hopefully if you do this stuff as much as I have and you try as many things as I have, hopefully you will come around and start to agree with me, regardless of whatever martial affinities are already within your heart. No matter what, I appreciate you being a part of Fight Smart and you know, listening to my sometimes intentionally aggravating opinions. It's been nice talking to you guys about this stuff, and I think I'm done with this video. I hear my little guy running around upstairs. I'm gonna go say hello. So that's it. Oh, next week I'm gonna teach you guys all about the Muay Thai clinch, fighting multiple attackers, and release a whole bunch of new stuff that you haven't seen before. That's all.
Hey, today feels like a great day to buy something, so do that. And if you're new to the website, feel free to sign up using the form on this page, and I'll email you when I make new videos. That is all. Have a fantastic day.